Welcome to Fit Fun Abs, your community podcast for health and well-being and all things wellness. You're listening to Fit Fun Abs. This session we're joined by Katie Reekie from Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership, as well as Megan Grace from Stirling University. We're going to be discussing behavioural change and a look at Megan's project on the impact of blue spaces. This was originally our first podcast, but we've had a few changes since then. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name's Sam Daniel Roteman Donaldson Raion. That's easy for me to say. Sam Raion, and I'm chairman of Fresh Community Wellness SCIO. We're a registered Scottish charity, SCO 51346. Fit Fun Abs is our production, firstly starting with podcasts, looking to move into videos and other exciting opportunities to work towards our charitable purposes, one of which is the education and inspiration, the factual information which can help benefit people in the community. So, thanks for coming, Katie and Megan. Firstly, on our questions, it is for me to introduce myself. So essentially I'm from lived experience. I have experience of drug and alcohol dependencies. I have also struggled on and off with mental and physical health with depression and anxiety, and physical health from being paralyzed 4 years ago, which led to the end of my dependencies. And it was good to reach that end. And that end was helped by the incredible team at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, 3 months in their premises, and they looked after me very well. I then moved on to the timber market for a short period and then got an exceptional doctor, and also went along to a place called Alcohol and Drugs Action. Through Alcohol and Drugs Action, I did many things, and it really made a difference. I ended up facilitating groups. I very quickly became ORT free and off of all morphine and opiate based painkillers. I fully support the recovery community and all their incredible efforts, and will always refer people to them if and when that person chooses that it's a good time for them to do so. There's incredible groups in town. You can find out more online. My journey with ADA took me briefly to Aberdeen Recovery and then also to SMU, where I'm still with today, doing shows, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Through SMU, I learned to express myself with things such as Create, Express, Transform, and various other courses such as Scottish Mentoring Network. This really opened up things, but through my sobriety, I also found that issues from the past hadn't been fully resolved. I had previously struggled with things such as ADHD, and it's clear that there are still some hiccups to be addressed. So I've lived experience of many things, but I've still some living experience, one of which is being late diagnosed neurodivergent, and that has been a celebration. Thankfully, having met some incredible people and have really been inspired by them, the incredible team at Triple A's. So I've learned to walk. I've got some weight to lose, but I'm managing to walk in a lot less pain when I walk than when I'm sitting still. I still suffer from severe spasms, and I very rarely sleep. When I do sleep, it's usually for around 2 or 3 hours. I struggle still with some communications. The phone can be a bit of a problem area at times, as well as some other general housekeeping duties that I'm slowly getting on top of. But again, pain and such like holds me back. But it doesn't stop me from doing things like this, and I hope that by doing things like this, we can inspire people to say you can still make a difference, even if you are classed as disabled, as I am presently. Whether you're neurodivergent, whether you've got lived or living experience, you can still make a difference. And very quickly, sorry for going on, Fresh came about because of my love of fitness. I'm a qualified martial arts instructor in 3 martial arts. I've studied fitness, Community Sports Leaders Award. I'm currently studying my REPS Level 3. That's Register of Exercise Professionals. And it's something I do want to get back into, as well as dancing. Sounds like a strange mix, but I love dancing. I think dancing's so good for wellness. Fresh came about as a need that I saw, not just in my community, but throughout the local area, of people being able to walk and talk. And for me, walking initially was a problem, but walking and talking, whatever your ability, whatever your background, wherever you're from, in a fully inclusive, non-judgmental environment. This has then led on to things such as the litter picking, which we were known for a while. Oh, it's Fresh, the litter picking group. And that was earlier this year, and that was fantastic. And by this time of this recording, it's roughly 3 tons we've picked up. That's in association with the Seaton and Linksfield networks, the incredible Lewis McGill. And we continue on that way. We've worked towards building up partnerships. So we're working with the Health and Social Care Partnership. We're working with Aberdeen City Council. We're a part of Keep Scotland Beautiful, It's Your Neighbourhood. This led on to looking at things like climate change. Obviously that's been in the news a lot anyway. And we also realised that Seaton is one of the most beautiful places in Aberdeen with incredible people, but it is very, very grey. It's just reached that point where it needed a gentle nudge. And we work in association with places such as the Star Community Flat, the great team over at the Supported Living, Bonaccord Care, incredible Paula. And we work with Suki, who's on our committee, Operations Committee. And Suki is from Aberdeen Gurudwara, who are also based in Seaton and would love to see some changes. So we're planting and painting and building positivity for the area, now with 2 community garden corner pockets, as well as a larger snug project, Seaton Neighbourhoods United Gardens, where we will be growing food with Keep Growing Aberdeen, and that'll become hopefully a focal point of a reason for people to actually come along to Seaton. And what we're really looking forward to is engaging with local residents, and we're especially interested in things such as the diaries and how they could overcome social isolation. Anyway, enough about me. Here are my special guests. I must add that the podcast series wouldn't have come about with one of these special guests, which is Katie. Katie Reekie has really supported me and is also a co-host for the podcast series so far. And what can I say? Just thank you so much, Katie. But Katie, over to you.
So, hello, my name is Katie and I'm a Health Improvement Officer for Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership. And Sam, honestly, I find every time when we've been in meetings together and you tell me, why you've developed Fresh and your background, I just find it so inspiring. I don't know, it makes me, I'm so excited to work with Fresh Community Wellness. Anyway, sorry. So my primary objective is to support the local outcome improvement plan, which was launched in 2016, and the plan is led by Community Planning Aberdeen in partnership with local people, communities and organisations. So since the arrival of COVID-19 pandemic, it has impacted everyone's well-being, and it's amplified the link between poverty and ill health. So we had an enormous 80,000 people volunteering to assist Aberdeen when communities needed our help the most. And we also had a huge amount of work done across the partnership to take forward local outcome improvement projects. We had a recent local outcome improvement project refresh along with our new locality plans. And it kind of marks the maturing of how we are working together to make life better for everyone so that no one's left behind. So through the local outcome improvement plan, we're reaching out to people, communities and businesses to kind of harness the strengths of them, and our core purpose which remains is putting people and the place first. So specifically, our vision for 2026 in Aberdeen is a place where all people can prosper. And this means all people being able to access opportunities available in our city regardless of their background or circumstances. So to improve outcomes for people, we are focusing on early intervention, prevention and self-management, and we're adopting a whole family approach to kind of support healthy behaviours which are normal with early years and persisting throughout the whole entire life. Specifically, my focus on the local outcome improvement plan is looking at outcome 11, which is healthy life expectancy, so it's time lived in good health in 5 years longer than by 2026. So one of the key drives for that is to provide individuals and communities with the social resources needed to reduce feelings of loneliness and social isolation. And the project aims to support 100 people to feel confident to promote well-being and good health choices by 2023. So that's just kind of a brief. I could go on it for ages about the local outcome improvement plan, but maybe just give a little bit detail about myself. I guess I'm very passionate about health behaviour change, physical activity and sport. So I'm really interested, kind of like, as we're speaking about behaviour change today, I've got quite an interest in how this can affect, like behaviour change affects young women's bodies and stuff regarding like physical activity and sports. So for instance, I noticed I was only really engaging in the gym and stuff as I was so fixed on achieving, like the idealized body image for women, and I think our society gives like a completely unrealistic standards for what we have to achieve, and I find it quite interesting to like look at the benefits and explore motivation of why, just like change that behavior mindset of why I'm doing something. I'm not doing it to achieve the idealized body, but I'm doing it because I want to look after my health and do it for good reasons and not reasons to, do because society tells us we've got to achieve these perfect standards. So yeah, that's just a little brief bit about myself and where I'm kind of interested in the behaviour change side of it. But yes, back to you, Sam.
Thank you so much for that, Katie. That was powerful, and it's something all too often I've noticed, not necessarily experienced, the female having to be looking a certain way, but I guess men, it can affect anyone at any age, and that peer pressure or what you're seeing in the media or the airbrushed images, I think it can really affect you. And again, it comes back in my mind to what's the definition of normal? And we seem to be pushed into going somewhere without perhaps taking that time to look at behavioural change and what people, how would, in their world, how would they like to progress, and getting rid of that outside intervention. So no, that's incredible. I believe that's how we first got talking. Katie was about the LOIP. And to me, it was terrifying. The area I'm in is, it's a beautiful area, but it's class. It's one of these unfortunate words, deprived. I don't like it, but with that healthy life expectancy at the level it's at, knowing that there's people such as Katie who are actively, coming together and really pushing, being the change, is inspiring to me. So, Megan, if you're okay telling us a bit more, what about yourself? What led to the PhD and the research, and especially what interested you in behavioural change?
Hi there. It was really interesting to hear both of you and your backstories. It's really inspiring hearing different people in sort of the public health and different aspects of charity work. I think it's really interesting. So I'm Megan. I'm a first-year PhD student at the University of Stirling, and my PhD is looking at freshwater areas, or sometimes known as inland blue spaces, like lakes, canals, lochs and things like that, and looking at how they can improve health and well-being across a community in a sort of equitable manner. So it's kind of working at the intersect of public health and environmental science, which is quite an interesting field to be in at the moment, especially when public health is getting increased recognition from the coronavirus. So it's something that's it's a sort of area that's constantly evolving, but it's really interesting to be a part of. So in relation to behavioural change, which you guys were just talking about, I think I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle because sort of the marker of success of my research and other people's research in this field would be to have positive behavioural change. So it would be like our research is looking at how we can sort of facilitate people accessing these areas, and the end goal would be to achieve this behavioural change with people increasing their visits to different inland blue spaces. And I think if you'd asked me at the start of my PhD how to go about that, I'd have probably said it was through educating people and providing people with the knowledge, because I'm from quite a scientific background because I did my undergrad degree in chemistry before I sort of moved into public health. So like statistics were sort of my thing. So I thought that was the way towards it. But then from reading the literature and things, I've sort of been realising that although this evidence is important to sort of show that we need to make a change, it's not enough to help people make a change, because sort of the people that would really benefit from access in nature, like green spaces and blue spaces, often are the people with the busiest lifestyles, or who are juggling lots of different commitments, or who don't have access to a car and things like that. So they would struggle to access inland blue spaces, even if you told them that it was beneficial for them. So it's looking at really developing the infrastructure to enable people to access these areas across the population. And I think just the environment itself is so fundamental to promoting your health and well-being. So I think ensuring that everyone can get access to these places is really important, and working out ways that we can facilitate that for different people. And I think, so what I'm really interested in is health equity and achieving that. And I guess I first got interested in that because when I was doing my master's in public health, we were asked to do a sort of case study of our local area. And I'm from Dumfries, so I've never been to Aberdeen, I've never made it that far north. But so from Dumfries, and in the sort of poorest area there, when I was looking into it, the life expectancy is 9 years lower than in the wealthiest area. And obviously there's the same hospital in Dumfries for everyone, there's a sort of same education level. So the main difference is really the environment. So it's looking at how we can enable everyone to get access to high quality environments, which can help promote health and well-being. So I think that's my story.
No, that's incredible. Oh, sorry, Katie. That's incredible to hear and absolutely amazing. I'm going to let Katie take over because it sounds as though it's in your ballpark with the early intervention side leading to the behavioural change. What do you think, Katie?
So I did my master's in public health and I did my undergrad in sports science. We looked at behaviour change, but it was more in the sense of how we can support people to change their behaviour to engage in being outdoors or physical activity, but we didn't look at it in that aspect. So I was really interested I don't really know anything, but so sort of like stats on, so say I went to the beach in Aberdeen, or I was just going to green spaces and stuff. Is there stats on that can reduce depression or reduce anxiety and stuff? Is it like a proven kind of, just because I don't really know much in that area?
Yeah, so there's sort of there's not really specific statistics because it's an evolving field, but there's sort of 4 proven mechanisms through which access in nature can promote health and well-being. And that's through like encouraging physical activity, because if you're sort of at the coast, you're more likely to walk along it or like want to see the rest of the view, and so keep doing physical activity, so it encourages you in that way. Also, these spaces are quite good for encouraging socialising. So either you'll quite often go to meet someone, or you'll bump into people on the way. You know, if you're walking your dog, you always end up speaking to people. So that's really beneficial for well-being in that sense. And they also promote a healthier environment because, like, for instance, the sound of water, it can take the sound of like the noise of cars and things. So it provides a healthier environment in that sense. And it can also like promote sort of the cooling of the environment, and especially like now when we've got a heat wave, being near to the coast, and that can definitely help. So it's developing a field in terms of the statistics, but it's getting there. So it's an interesting field to be working on.
It's really interesting because if I'm stressed or upset, I don't know why, but in my head I'm like, my first thing I think of is I need to go walk to one of the parks near me, or I go to the beach, but I don't know why, but it's my first thing I think of that I need to do because I know it calms me, but I don't know why it calms me. I do find that interesting. I've never actually really thought about it in that way, but I don't know why that's I'm like, I need to go outside, and I just feel, I don't know, like you can, like it's an escapism almost from reality. I don't know. But
Yeah, definitely. Change of scene always helps, I think.
definitely. And I guess again, in the sports side of it, we would use like goal setting and like different strategies of behavior change. And is there different types of behavioral change methods or strategies that you embed to promote your work then? Because I'm going to presume it's a bit different to the way you would do it in a sports setting.
Well, at the moment, I'm sort of working on this diary project, and I think the act of like self-recording what you've been doing is quite important, because you can reflect on your behavioural change and see what you've done and feel quite proud of, what you've been doing to make yourself feel better. So obviously not everyone will enjoy writing a diary, because it takes a specific kind of person. It's quite a lot of diligence. But even different things like if that app on your phone, you could get as like 1 photo a day or something like that. So you can sort of build up a collage of photos of what you've done for your positive behavioural change. It's just things like that, keeping track. I think it's really important.
You manage to kind of test this like self-recording or diaries out on the public then and see if it's been successful?
Yeah, so I finished doing a test run of the project last month, and it was really good actually. So I got people from one community to do it, and I got them to sort of write in a diary entry every time they'd visited a freshwater area, or every time they felt like doing a diary. It wasn't mandatory. So every time I felt like doing a diary entry for the course of a month. And we got some really interesting results from it. So initially, I sort of thought everyone would be recording things about the water and what they saw there, but actually, what seemed to be most interesting to people was the wildlife around the blue space, which isn't something I'd considered before, because I'm quite interested in wildlife, but not as interested. But maybe if I was writing a diary about it, I would be. But it was, it was really interesting, albeit because it was springtime as well, so I think that might have affected it. But we had about like 20 different species recorded across the different people. It was really nice as well. I felt like I actually learned a lot reading the diaries and analysing the data, so it was good.
I like it. What would you say were, the main strengths of it then that came out that you're like, okay, we can actually, after the small kind of, I'm going to guess as a pilot, like this could actually be applied? What would you say were the main, positive outcomes?
So I would say it was quite effective in proving that the diary method is successful, because this is something that hasn't really been tested in sort of blue space before, because it takes quite a bit of commitment from participants, so it's harder to recruit participants, obviously. But it kind of showed that, so if you just interviewed someone and asked them about their freshwater experiences, they'd be put under quite a lot of pressure, and they'd probably forget lots of things that happened because they might have happened a while ago. But because people were writing on a regular basis at a time that suited them, we got a lot of detailed information. And I think because they could do it like in the comfort of their own home, they weren't put under pressure. So it was more like sort of natural accounts of their experiences, which was really interesting. And obviously the data, because it was a small data set, but we did sort of see a slight variation in the restorative outcomes from different people. So for instance, people that visited a couple of different types of blue spaces on their walk, they generally had a higher restorative rating of their walks. They got better wellness outcomes out of it than people that just visited one space. So it'll be interesting to see in the final study if this theme carries on, or if it was just for that group of participants. So it'll be interesting to see how the project develops over time.
So what would you say were like the big challenges, I guess? Was it like getting people the motivation to do the regular recordings, or?
Everyone who did it was actually really motivated to write it. We got so much detail from people. It was amazing. It was really helpful. But I would say the challenges are, because when you're writing it yourself, like I know what I mean. Whereas when I got responses back from people, some of the questions were taken in different ways. And so I got some interesting responses. So it was really got out of it, but I needed to make everything absolutely clear and no room for misunderstanding. Because there was one question, it was about what was the main activity you did at the water body? But some people misconstrued that and thought, what was it like historically used for? So they were like, doing all this research onto every water body they visited, and I was like, oh no, I've made you do so much work. But it's just things like that to iron out, which is really useful for a pilot study.
So would there be anything you would do differently next time, or something, another test you'd like to do, a behaviour change practice you'd like to try out that alongside it, or just anything different you'd want to try for future?
I think in an ideal world, if I had the resources, I would probably like to do like a sort of study where you get like half a group going to like a blue space site every day and half a group not, and doing like a really controlled study like that to see how it improves wellbeing levels. But I think that'd be quite hard to facilitate. Yeah,
that'd be difficult, but it'd be so interesting to see, say the people going to blue spaces were like happier or more energetic from, even if it was an urban blue space or something, if they just felt better being kind of surrounded by the nature. 'Cause I don't know what it is, but I feel so calm and collected, and I don't know what, again, it interests me, but I don't really understand that side of it. But no, Sam, do you have any questions?
I find all of those points fascinating, interesting, and as I think I'd mentioned to Megan previously, we'd thought about diaries, and it was, again, how do we get people to fill them out? Because, well, the example of the person who's been in the press, who's a great success from coming to Fresh, he initially, the first time we spoke, he says, well, thank you, but I've no idea when I'll see you again. That was the chaos of the lifestyle, let alone recording a diary. But over time, by being able to show him, look, you've done this much in this month, and then the following month was the same, and then after that period of befriending, just as going into the group with Fresh, he had that confidence, and because it was there was notes there, it really sort of, it almost dawned on him, there was that self-realization, this is working, whereas without that, I suppose, with evidence, like a backup, he might not have felt things were exactly, in his words, he wanted everything absolutely out perfect instantly. But as we all know, it doesn't work that way. But by having this to show that it still wasn't the absolute, multi-million pound wonder that you were aiming for, you've achieved and succeeded and done so much. So that certainly interests me, of being able to use them for different purposes, and for the activity, or even the study you mentioned, possibility of perhaps if there were people who a couple of weeks before, in the future I'm speaking about, a couple of weeks before they started doing blue space, could record the 2 weeks prior, if that makes sense. For instance, if they're isolated, if they're in the home, if they can write down the 2 weeks, how they're feeling, and then the rest is when they go out. That might be interesting. But from my point of view, I think just having as is that interaction, getting out in nature. I'm exactly the same. Depression, anxiety, social awkwardness, even on the phone, just by moving about, walking, I can concentrate far better. And being outside, we also find people relax so much more. It doesn't feel like an interview, or that they have to do this, they have to do that, because you've got those sites, as you mentioned. You're looking at that part of nature. You're looking at the beautiful water. You're looking at all these other things, and I just noticed people relaxing with Fresh, and the opportunities, I guess, as initially we could help people in the future by starting doing the diary for them, with them, i.e., and then when they feel confident, they could do it. But yeah, there's lots of options. But wow, I find it absolutely fascinating.
So just a quick, again, like, I think diaries are great, but is there different types of, so also you can do like paper based on diary, but is there like online diaries or different ways? So say I'm super dyslexic, so my worst nightmare is I write something down and then if I share it or I read it back to myself, I'm like, I've not a Scooby what I was trying to say. But is there like different ways so then it can suit all the different people that are gonna, you know, just what type of diaries you can do, if there's like online ones or like recording it, or can you do it in lots of different ways?
Yeah, we looked into all these options when we were designing the diaries because I prefer writing stuff down because I get quite frustrated at the computer. But I know like my family, they prefer computer stuff and it's different. Yeah, you've got to suit everyone's preference. So what we've done for the moment is we've done a paper booklet diary for people, and we've also got a Microsoft Word version of it for people to use. But if you were setting up your own sort of diary at home for like different things, there's lots of different things you could do. Like set up a Google form is really quite an easy way of like collecting all your different responses and looking back at them to track yourself over time. Or even like I say, collecting different photos and then you can remember what you were doing that day. It sort of suits, yeah, you've got to find a way to suit everyone and sort of help you reflect on what you've been doing. I think it's quite helpful.
Yeah, I love the photo idea, and I was like, would you class a diary as maybe you were just recording it and it was just your voice of your wherever you were that day or something? Would that get classes?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of doing it because I know it's quite popular for people to even just message each other with voice notes these days. I hate listening back to my own voice, but I know that other people like it, so that's always an option for people too. Yeah.
And maybe just because, again, because I'm sure you'll know so many different things in behaviour change, but would you recommend it any for people at Fresh or service users or whoever, like any online resources available on behaviour change or blogs or communities in this kind of area? Because I don't really know that stuff.
Yeah, I think if you'd asked me this before I started doing the project, I'd probably not known anything. But actually, to find different participants, I've had to be quite active in different online platforms. So one of the things I've done is contacted lots of different bloggers because they're sort of diary writing anyway, so they're quite used to that process. So even just reading the different blogs, there's quite a lot in Scotland on different walks and things, and you can get ideas of what to do. Or another thing that I've found, like, I've never been part of sort of Facebook community groups before, but I joined them sort of to recruit participants. And they're really, really supportive communities. There's a lot of like sort of wild swimming groups where someone will just say, oh, we're doing this swim today, and then you can like join if you want to or not. So it's quite nice because you've got the option to join in on things, but you don't have the social pressure to. Because a lot of the enjoyment of nature is not having pressure on it. There was like a study done where doctors sort of prescribed people to go to green spaces, and the people that did that, they felt more pressure that they had to go and sort of enjoy it, so they actually enjoyed it less. So I think sort of the casual aspect of these groups where you can join in on days that you feel good and you feel like you want to, I think it's really good. And I think the nature of Fresh as well, when you've got this sort of social interaction, I think that's really helpful because socialising with people and meeting with people is quite a powerful motivator to get out, so I think that's great.
Definitely, I agree.
Katie, one thing I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, is perhaps for like the Aberdeen side of things, regarding your area, are there any initial go-to resources you would recommend? Obviously, we'll be attaching links, etc. to this, but just if you had any good first steps for people in the Aberdeen area?
Again, well, from kind of personal experience, not so much work-wise, kind of because I've recently come back to Aberdeen community and I'm quite outdoorsy. And when you mentioned, Megan, about online communities, I've joined a couple. One is they go like open water swimming at 6:30 in the morning, so I've joined like their online Instagram community, and I've joined another like hiking community, and they share photos and people share their own kind of personal experiences of the walks and stuff. So I find that really quite nice, and you kind of find where it's safe to go to. So that's maybe more my personal side of it. The health side of it for behaviour change, the Public Health Scotland have got They're free online e-courses, so you can find out more information if you want about. I can share it after and we can put it on the website, but there's lots of kind of like online free, especially during the pandemic. I swear there's so much free online learning, and it's really interactive and there's videos, which makes it exciting. But yeah, I've just been joining lots of like online groups and stuff and trying to make new friends that way as well when you move into a new area. I guess I feel like connecting with nature is quite a good way to do it. But yeah.
Fantastic. I think it's just all round. I think it's good news. I just love the fact that it's all positive. There's so many people now with that commitment to working, everyone working with each other, people helping people. It's brilliant. So from me, just thank you so much from my side of things. Katie, thank you for giving me the opportunity to hopefully have this as a series. And Megan, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to do some research for you. And hopefully, if you're up for it, perhaps we could chat towards the end of the diaries.
That sounds like yeah.
Katie, I'll leave you to say the goodbyes.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. It's so lovely to meet you, Megan, and good luck with the rest of your PhD. But I'm sure it'll go fabulous.
Thank you.
Yes, I look forward to our next podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant.
No, it's been good.
Yeah, it went well actually.
It was really good.
So a huge thank you to Megan and to Katie, and tune in again for Fit Fun Abs.